Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another Monday Mindset. Hard to believe it's already Monday again. Today, we're going to talk about probably the most important skill set in your life, which is leadership. You know, what makes a great leader? This is something I have been trying to figure out myself for as long as I've been doing business. But, you know, it also applies to, I think, like I have 2 kids now. How do I be a great leader in my home for my children? I have a wife. She's amazing. She doesn't need me to lead her, but how do I be a great leader there for my relationship with my wife? And then how do I be a great leader for my company, right? We have over 330 employees and trying to attract more. And what are the things that great leaders have? I would love to hear your take on this as we get the Monday Mindset going. I'm going to share with you some of the things I've learned. Maybe we'll start off with what I thought was great leadership that is not great leadership, and then go into some of the principles that have applied for great leadership. But before we do that, I'm going to cue this intro, and I will see you guys on the other side of this Monday Mindset. Let's go.
There are no bad businesses. There are just those people who don't know enough to see the opportunities in the work they're in. If there seems to be no future or opportunity in it, it isn't always because it's not there, but perhaps only because we can't see it.
What is up? Happy Monday. Welcome to another Monday Mindset. I want to give you guys just some simple thoughts on leadership today. If you were trying to, build an agency and recruit a downline of agents, how do you attract the right people to your organization? If you are trying to lead well in your home, if you're trying to lead your children, heck, if you're trying to lead yourself, what makes a great leader? I, by no means, am a leadership expert, but I'll share with you some of the things that have worked for me and some of the things that haven't worked, and I would tell you that one of the principles that has applied in my life is you'll never surpass in your life the level that you are. Meaning, like, you're going to need amazing people to scale an organization. Very few things have ever been done in life alone. Or I should say very few great things have ever been done in life alone. So you're going to need other people along with you on the journey. Well, you will never attract people greater usually than where you're at. And it doesn't mean your talent level and your skill set. It means your leadership ability, right? Because great people want to work for incredible leaders. And it's interesting, in my journey in leadership, I lead a team of about 330 plus right now throughout Reminder Media. And one of the things that I used to try to do is I used to try to get to know all of my people on a really personal level and try to set up the organization to really work for what, would help them succeed. And though that is good in spirit, and it is good in maybe altruism, like I want my people to succeed. I want the organization to help every single person that works for me. It was a good feeling and it was a good heart behind it, but it failed in practicality because I realized that leadership is not about trying to set up the organization to where every single person that works for you, it's a perfect alignment to what they're going through and what's going on and how to craft the, whether it's the time that people work or the structures that they have, all the way from pay to literally time off. It's not about structuring it based upon where they're at. It's about structuring your organization based upon where the vision is. And I've realized in leadership that, what's interesting is that the greatest leaders are almost unwaverable on their vision and what they're trying to accomplish. And, I'm reminded, you think of like Nelson Mandela, right? And he's considered one of the greatest leaders of all time in the movement that he did. But did you know he was thrown in prison, I think, for like 27 years because of his activism, because of his push for racial equality. And he was thrown in prison for 27 years. He was so resolute in his beliefs and what he wanted. And if you think about all the greatest leaders in history, man, a lot of them went literally to their death for the mission and the vision that they were going for. And this is really important because you're going to be faced with on your journey of whether or not you should compromise what you're trying to do. Maybe it's your standards, right? Maybe you expect people to do 200 dials a day and you then come across a person that you want on the team, but they don't want to do 200 dials a day because they have something going on in their life. And you realize like the old Luke Acree would have, kind of, okay, let me see if I can make this work, instead of the new Luke Acree going, no, this is not about me compromising on my standards. This is about the vision, and the people that want to be part of the vision, they will stay with you on that. And I have found that the more I press into the standards and the resoluteness on the vision, the more top performers rise and C performers, they get off the boat. And that is what you ultimately want. But what's so hard about this, and I was talking to my brother Steven about this yesterday. Now, he has a real estate business where he's attracting people into his business. I think he has like 18 agents on his team at this point, and he's building it. And I was telling him, he's like, the hard part is you have to go through a lot of people to find the winners. And I told him, I said, hey, man, you got to just flip the switch on in your mind of thinking that's crazy and that's wrong, that you have to go through so many people to find the winners, to no, that's actually what success looks like. And I said, if you think of Harvard, I mean, how many people does Harvard reject just to select the smartest people in the United States, right? To build a great organization, you have to be so resolute on your vision, which will then pass down to the standards that you live by every single day, that you're willing to reject person after person after person. And unfortunately, in this world that we live in, it is really, really difficult to interview well. Anybody who has figured out interviewing, please comment in and let me know that you have good interviews. I mean, I've done thousands of interviews, and I've realized that, man, it is so hard to select the right person through an interview process, but within 90 days of them being in your organization, whether they're an A player or not. And it's your pride that keeps you from wanting to admit that you made a mistake, that this person's not a fit, and to move on from them. And I've just flipped the script for myself. It's just going like, hey, look, I'm going to hire. I'm going to do my best due diligence. I'm going to use all the wisdom I can. I'm going to check references. I'm going to do all the things that I know tend to produce the outcome I want. But at the end of the day, when we get in there, if they're not an A player, I'm going to be willing to move. And I'm not going to have any pride to tell me, oh, I care that people are look at me wrong because I hired wrong or something like that. No, I'm just going to move away from it because the vision is that important. And I think in great leadership is you have people that are so sold on their vision that they sell others constantly. And you cannot sit for a second thinking that you need to compromise your vision or you need to adjust where you're at because maybe you don't know. And I know this might not come across the right way, but I have found in interviewing like 500 plus people on the podcast that, man, the ones that are really growing their business, they just don't think they're wrong. They don't think they're wrong. Now, here's the thing. I believe you have to be that resolute in your vision where you don't think you're wrong. You're gonna go out there on the limb, not think you're wrong. And the key is, and I think this is almost like a biblical principle too, you need to have a couple people in your life, counsel. I think it's in Proverbs, it says, wise is the man who has like one or two people that they let in to be their counsel. You have some counsel that you entrust to lower your guard, let your armor down, that when they speak, you go, okay, maybe I'm wrong, and I'll change directions. But for the rest of the world, you have to be resolute. And I am telling you, that sounds counter what some of these leadership books will tell you. But in practicality, the successful people after successful people that I meet, they do not believe they're wrong. They go out there with a resoluteness that it's my way or the highway. This is the way we're going. And because of that belief and conviction, it actually inspires high performers to join them on the cause versus the person who goes out and goes, no, I'm open-minded. I could be wrong. You tell me your ideas. You might be smarter than me. That person is actually wishy-washy in where they're going and what they're doing, and they can't execute. And so therefore, they don't attract A players because A players ultimately get frustrated and go, make a decision. Let's just go. And I have found that the people who are resolute, that don't believe they're wrong, except for maybe 1 or 2 people, 3 people that they lit in as counsel, those people, they go and guess what happens to them? They succeed, but they also fail. And when they fail, guess what they do? They still don't admit they're wrong. They get up and go, yep, we learned, and they keep going. And I just want people to grasp what I'm laying down here is that I think the books will teach you that you got to be open-minded. You got to, not be the smartest person in the room. You got to listen to people. And in certain contexts, sure, I get what it's saying. But I have found, dude, the people who are really, really successful, they don't listen. They believe they're right. They go all in. They burn the ships. They don't care if you're telling them they're wrong. And if you are really great, then you apply the biblical principle of having maybe 1 or 2 counsel, that those people you trust with your life, those people you let down your guard around. And when those people tell you, hey, you need to look at this. Hey, you need to think about this. That's when you let your guard down and you're open to change. And if I could tell you anything, be resolute, because you won't attract people. You will not attract the people that you want. And then on top of it, be hardcore, because people will get off the boat. You're going to go through, if you want to build a multi-million-dollar organization, you're going to go through hundreds, if not thousands of people. You are. I wish it wasn't that way. I just haven't met anybody where it hasn't been that way. Usually the people that have it that way haven't built something really, really big. It's like you're going to go through a ton of people, but it's not in a negative that way it sounds. It's not because you're mistreating the people along the way. No, your business is a bus going in a certain direction. And that bus going from point A to point B, people are going to get on. And that bus is going to come to stops along the way. And those people are going to get off because it's their stop. And they're going to go on to the next bus to get them down the road of life that they want to go on. And your goal is to treat people the right way, be resolute in your vision, hold to your standards no matter what. So when they get to the bus stop, there's no confusion of what, well, maybe Luke will cater to what I want. And maybe he'll change what his beliefs are to what I want. No. There's absolute clarity. This is where Luke's going. This is where Reminder Media is going. And if you want to go this way, be on this bus. If not, you have absolute clarity. Get off the bus and go to another bus. And that actually is loving people. Because if you think about it, now you've saved them time. There's no confusion. There's no confusion of where this bus is going. There's no confusion of what we're trying to accomplish. And I believe that's great leadership, right? Because a leader is not going to be liked all the time. They're not going to be liked all the time. You're going to be liked some of the time, but you won't be liked all the time. The leader's job is not just the people. The leader's job is the vision and the mission. That's true leadership. What's up, Joe? I'm seeing your comments come in, my man. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. Another thing, hey, good morning, Grace. Good to see you. Another thing that I have found with leadership that I think is one of the highest qualities that you need, it also applies to sales, is to have the emotional intelligence, this EQ that you should practice to understand how you're being perceived, because everything rises and falls with leadership, as John Maxwell says. And I think the symptom that most comes out with people who are not good in leadership is bad communication. And I have suffered from this in our company, that I think I'm communicating one thing, but I'm really not communicating it clearly enough, because either I'm being too soft or maybe I'm being too hard. But it all comes down to one thing. I'm not being consistent enough in that communication. This applies to not only your communication, it actually applies to your strategy in business. If you want to be really, really good, do one thing. Do one thing insanely well. Take one message and just hammer it over and over and over and over again. Every meeting, even when it sounds funny, even when it sounds mundane, you hammer it over and over and over again. You ever played the game telephone as a kid? You play whisper down the lane, and by the end of the line, just literally 3-4 people, it's literally a different message. This is what is happening in your organization. You think you're communicating the message, and you probably did. But because of whisper down the lane, because of how human brains work, because of communication, you're not saying it enough. And so I have found that I shouldn't change my message in terms of my passion and my energy, whether it's stern or soft or whatever. But what I need to change is my consistency and how many times I deliver it. And I need to be so repetitive that almost the people around me go, okay, Gabe, we get it. We get it. We're going to empower people to live a life of freedom by helping them close more deals, retain more business. Gosh darn right, we're going to do that. It's like you just hammer the message over and over again. So if you think you've hammered the message enough with your team, you haven't. Because it always comes back. And if you think about PR as just a practical application of messaging, when people have an incident that happens, they say, you want to get ahead of the incident. And what you want to do in times of crisis is communicate. Because if you're not communicating, people communicate, meaning they create their own narrative. It kind of applies to your brand. If we want to tie this into marketing, because I'm a marketing guy, right? You have a brand, whether you think so or not. The question is, do you control the brand, or do your prospects control the brand? Are you controlling the messaging, or is somebody else controlling the messaging? And most of the time we think people get it, but we're not repeating the message enough. So my failure in leadership has been, I have tried to cater my organization to 100 different people versus catering it only to the vision and being resolute on that, which then leads to the standards, which then leads to going through a lot of people and not being ashamed to go through a lot of people. And then number 2, Luke, you haven't hammered the message consistently enough over and over and over and over again, because you think people get it when they don't, and that's on you. The burden of communication is on the person who's delivering the message. That's the burden of communication. It's not on the person who's receiving it. You own the burden of communication. So if they didn't understand and they did something wrong, that's your fault. The messenger, you own the burden of communication, and that's been a huge lesson for me in my leadership journey. Like I said, these aren't all encapsulating of what makes a great leader, but I'm just telling you my failures that have now turned into hopefully successes because I'm doing something different, right? You got to do something different to get different results. Another thing that I wrote down here that I think you have to have as a leader, which kind of ties into the vision, mission, and the communication, is you have to inspire people and have the highest degree of integrity. And if you think about inspiring people, right, that's pointing them back to the vision. But I think inspiration and integrity comes from doing what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, every time that you do it, meaning it's and when people aren't watching. So the idea of inspiring my team today, you know what inspires my team the most? Yes, I can get on and do a rah-rah speech, which I often do, or we can, watch something motivational. And those are emotionally inspirational for a moment, but emotions come and go, right? But what really truly inspires people is to see someone day in and day out living what they say, putting in the work, doing what they say with the highest degree of integrity along the way, treating people right as they do it. And that is the true inspiration. That's the people you actually want to be around. The people that, I think of when I grew up in church, right? And I'm a believer. You guys know this. So the people that made the biggest impact on my life as I look back were not the really, out there people speaking or singing or anything like that. It was the elders and the men of the church that came week after week, served at the church, served in the ministries that we were doing. No glory, no recognition or anything like that, but we're doing it day in and day out because they actually believed it. And I look back at those people in my life as pillars of faith to me of going, yeah, look at their faithfulness, and their faithfulness has inspired me based upon the integrity of how they live their life. And the same applies in business. If you want to inspire the people around you, do you have the faithfulness that you should have, living out in integrity to what you're saying you want to do, this vision that you want to accomplish, and doing it when you say you're going to do it every single time, even when people aren't watching? And I think great leaders have that. I'm still trying to strive to that every single day. It's not a 100% gain. It's one day you're at 10%, and the next day hopefully you're at 100%, and then the next day you're at 70%, and it's every single day trying to wake up and strive to be that leader. Because just think about the leaders in your life that you respect. Why do you respect them? It usually isn't because of the awards they've won, or at least not for me. It usually isn't because of the amount of money they have, even though that's a great result of what they've done. It's usually not that. And that leads to the last thing I wrote down, which is to be an amazing leader, which ties into everything I'm saying. Great leadership takes courage. And if you look at, like I mentioned, Nelson Mandela being thrown in prison for 27 years, or you think of Winston Churchill, or you think of Martin Luther King, like you think of all these people throughout history that everybody admires and considers to be great, great leaders. And you think about the one thing that they had was courage. They had the courage to do things when nobody else was doing them. They had the courage to stand by their belief, even if they're going to be thrown in prison. They had the courage, right, to live out their belief. And I just go, man, where does courage come from, right? And that only comes from, in my mind, ultimately, I think it comes from your creator. But courage ultimately comes from your why, comes from your purpose, comes from why are you doing what you're doing. And this is why people will always tell you once they have a little money that you won't be able to keep doing this just for the money, because it won't be enough to inspire that courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. It's just moving forward in face of fear, right? So you're going to live your whole life with questions. You're going to live your whole life with fear. Courage is moving forward in spite of that. And true leaders have courage. You have hard decisions to make right now that you're putting off. And that has a lack of courage. And you're making, whatever reason you're making, myself included, I have decisions right now that I'm thinking of, that I'm putting off, that I need to have more courage. And I need to step forward as a leader, because that's what leaders do. Leaders are willing to plant their flag out there and go, I believe this. It's on me. It's not on you. I'm not going to put the ownership on you. I'm not going to blame anybody else. I believe this. The ownership's on me. And when I plant the flag and I get out there and I have the courage to do it, that's when things can move forward. But if I half plant the flag, but then go, yeah, but what do you think? That causes confusion. That causes lack of clarity, which causes a lack of execution. You got to plant that flag. You got to believe it. So you can see there's this whole theme with the things I've learned in leadership is it all comes down to, do you believe in the vision and mission that you're trying to do, and are you resolute in it? Don't be scared if you have to go through thousands of people to build something big. You will find A performers by holding to your standards and not backing down. I am telling you, I've tried it both ways. I've tried backing down. I've tried catering my business to 100 different people. It doesn't work. I haven't met other entrepreneurs that it's worked for. The ones who win are the ones who are resolute. They think they're right no matter what. And then they get wise counsel that those people they lit in, but everybody else, it's the vision or get out of my way. And then communicate. You have to communicate and over communicate. If you think you're communicating enough, you're just getting started. And then third, live a life of integrity and inspire people. And the only way you're going to do that is through the fourth, is by having courage. And that courage is going to flow from that vision that you have. So I hope this helped you. I hope this starts your Monday out the right way. Let's go get it today. If you want to attract people into your organization, you only attract the level that you are. So you got to level up if you want to attract other people in your life to move you higher. So get around people that are better leaders than you so you can naturally level up because they've attracted you into their sphere. Let's get out there and win for our clients, for our family, for our friends. Let's make it happen. Appreciate you guys. See ya.